Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zerl. With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick and cousin Jeff.
Punish.
Visit us at ihatecritics.net, Everyone's a Critic podcast.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Our handle's CriticsPod. Listen to the show at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, all your podcatchers. Subscribe to the show. Leave a 5-star review. If you will, we'll read it on the air, and Sean has some movies for you. Still any specific ones? You mentioned one last week.
Is the movie.
What was that? Sorry, you cut out for a second.
Yeah, sorry. Alienoid is the movie we're giving away.
Alienoid. Patreon.com/criticspod is the best way to help support the podcast. And then check out our TeePublic link over at ihatecritics.net up in the right-hand corner, or search CriticsPod at TeePublic. Jeff, tell everybody where they can find your art.
All my links are at jefflassiter.com. You can follow me on Instagram. It's Jeff Lassiter Pop Cult, and I have all my links for merch and stuff there. I'll also post a link tonight of the shirt that I'm wearing in honor of Silent Night, Deadly Night.
And Sean, where can people read your reviews?
You can check it out at geeks.media, also at shothatthemovies.blogspot.com, where the archive of the past 20 plus years is located.
And all those links will be in our show notes. All right. Let's get to the show. We'll just skip over the news that we just got before we started recording. And Kirstie Alley died.
And we're going to start with this movie.
And our first movie is Darby and the Dead. In fairness, I made this order before I found out she died.
Yeah. Well done, though, nevertheless. Darby and the Dead stars Riley Downs as Darby. She is a young girl who had an accident as a child, nearly died, and developed the ability to speak to the dead. And she uses this then to sort of as an idea for a business where she starts helping dead people go on to the afterlife by solving whatever it was that they were doing while they were alive and didn't get to do because they died. And she doesn't make any money doing this, but she calls it a business nevertheless. When things change, when a character played by Ali Cravalho, who is this mean girl at school, dies while she's bullying Darby, and then she comes back and is a dead person Darby's trying to help her get to the afterlife, or forcing Darby to help her to get to the afterlife by throwing a massive party. Or she thinks that will a massive Sweet 16 party will be her perfect send-off to get her to heaven. But I mean, obviously that's not it. And obviously this is a story about Darby going from a nerdy kid to being a more open kid who's also getting over the death of her mother. So really, there's not a lot here. There's a lot of very basic materials in place. And what a movie like this does, of course you know where this is going. Of course you know what the arcs are going to be. You know the party is not the point. You know that the romance stuff, the teen romance stuff is not the point. You need bigger jokes. You need bigger ideas to go with that, because these types of formula films are fine. You can do a formula movie like this and make it work. I can see a version of Darby and the Dead that works, but this one doesn't have any ideas to go with that. It just has the very basic presentation of the ideas of, nerdy girl becomes popular, learns valuable lesson, and dead girl, goes on to heaven after realizing her true purpose and whatnot. And they don't add anything to that. The movie isn't funny enough. The movie isn't dramatic enough. It's just not, it doesn't have anything else going for it beyond the concept of teenager talks to the dead and helps them go on to the afterlife. There's only one good thing about this movie, and it's Tony Danza. So what does that tell you?
It tells me he's back.
He delivers the only good performance in the movie, or at least the only memorable one, is a guy who he's passed on, and he's decided to stay around until his wife dies, and then they can go into the afterlife together. And that's kind of a charming idea, and he's very sage and helpful, and he seems kind of invested in this more than anybody else does. And I wanted more of his interaction with Darby. That was kind of the best thing about the movie, but he kind of gets shuffled off in the second half and doesn't come back until the third act, and they don't really give him a good send-off aside from him getting the best joke in the movie, which is the only time I laughed is him getting very excited about his wife entering hospice.
So wrong.
It's the one good joke in the movie, though. It's funny. His enthusiasm for that is funny. That's it, though. That's all that there is to sell this movie.
Did you watch it, Jeff?
I wouldn't say I watched it, but I had it on.
It happened in a room adjacent to you.
Yes, I was in a room with this movie. It started off as like, okay, a teen comedy kind of, okay, this is fun. Oh, it's kind of She's All That. It's kind of, all these Pygmalion stories, but with dead people. Yeah. And I gotta be honest, I lost interest about halfway through because I knew exactly what was going to happen. They telegraph everything at the beginning. Mm-hmm. I really wanted to like this movie because I liked the actors in it. I thought they were, they're all winning, but it was just kind of like wrote by the numbers. I don't know. I didn't love it. And this is kind of up my alley because I like all those 90s teen comedies and I like dead people and horror stuff. But it was fine. This is what you watch at a sleepover when you're 13. And you're like, oh, that's so funny. Oh my God, I want to be popular. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Did you watch it, Bob?
I watched the trailer and then I was like... I'm not a film critic. I don't have to watch this. It's probably best for the podcast if I do, I guess. But what am I going to give you? 30 seconds worth of my opinion and then we move on. I'm too old for this and I just don't care.
Well observed.
So I apologize. But I did watch the trailer, if that means anything.
Well, you probably saw the movie.
That's pretty much, yeah. Kind of what I figured. And if I was home, I worked the entire weekend, so I never had a chance. If my daughter was around to watch it with me, it would have been one thing, but I'm several decades.
How do you think it ends, Bob? How do you think it ends?
She gets out of her shell and is happy. The ghost goes to heaven. I don't know.
Yeah, that's
everything's tied up in a perfect little bow.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep. Oh, and she sees her dead mom, who she thinks went to heaven, but she's been hanging around to watch her until she was ready.
Did this hell exist in this movie at all?
On screen. I mean,
unintentionally.
We're all in hell. Yeah, unintentionally.
This is the kind of movie that unironically has a makeover sequence, so that tells you a lot, too.
Nice. All right. After Yang. I did watch this one.
Oh, nice. After Yang is the latest movie from Kogonada, director of Columbus with John Cho, which is one of my favorite films of the last few years. And this one's about a science fiction film set in the very far future about a family that... has adopted a young daughter, and with that, they adopted a robot son to be her older brother and kind of caretaker, and also kind of keep her in touch with her roots. And then one day, he just stops working. The robot brother, he just stops working, Yang, and they have to figure out whether or not they can save him, bring him back to life, have him, bring him back as who he was, or whether or not he's just going to be recycled or thrown away or whatever. And along the way, they managed to obtain his memories. And Colin Farrell spends much of the movie kind of going through those memories. And the movie becomes this really wonderful, beautiful meditation on the idea of what makes a person a person. What do your memories add up to? What does it tell you? What does someone's memory of you tell you about yourself? And that is just extraordinarily well accomplished. I don't think this movie is as good as Columbus. I still think Columbus is a far better film, but I think the ideas here that Kogonada is working with are still just utterly brilliant. The visuals are gorgeous. His sci-fi, the way he uses science fiction is so much better than most people use science fiction. He's using it to reveal people. He's using it to reveal the audience and reveal these characters. And like I said, the scenes where he's just looking through Yang's memories and kind of looking at himself through this young robot's eyes is beautiful. But then there's also this life that this young robot man had outside of the family that nobody knew about. That is quite beautiful as well. I loved this movie a lot.
This young robot man.
I don't know what
I know, but I like the way you worded it. I watched it very literal, just almost as if he's a pet, almost like it was Marley and Me, in a way. All the things. You're 100% right, but on a literal level, it's a fucked up movie. Because imagine if we get. You know what I'm saying? Imagine if we get to this point and, it's not a pet, but it's not even as alive. I don't know. It's just very, watching them go through that and, dealing with him as a product, but then he's still part of the family and everything he has to go through, is very interesting and, just weird to watch. And, I don't know. I don't think it's for everybody. I don't think a lot of people would appreciate this movie, but I do think it's definitely for the A24 fan.
Yeah, and this is an A24 movie, and Kogonada is kind of the perfect director for them. He's working on a different level when it comes to ideas, and there's nothing typical about what he does. Much of Columbus is centered on architecture and the way that architecture reveals the relationship between a father and a son. Like, he thinks of things very differently than so many other directors, and that's why I just love his work so much, and I love this work. The little girl in this movie is so wonderful. She's just such a great actress. She's so true. There's never a false moment with her. And her feelings towards Yang are so powerful. Like, that's her brother. It's not a robot. That's her brother. And his existence as a robot may be real to her, but it's also the fact that this is her brother and she loves him. And that is heartbreaking. And it's heartbreaking, for both, for the other characters in the movie as well. And then they reveal his backstory and they come up with this even deeper idea of who he was. And it's just lovely.
Well, and the facial expressions you see on this poster is largely the facial expressions they have throughout the movie, which kind of makes for a neat picture. Like every frame is almost like it could be its own. Literally it is a picture. I get it, but it's like a well thought out, like almost something you'd hang on your wall type picture.
A composed painting. Yes, that's another aspect of what Kogonada does is his cinematography, his choices, like shooting. He shoots through door frames a lot. He likes the idea of putting you either outside or inside and making it specific that you're outside or inside. And that idea of drawing someone inside, bringing you in or leaving you out are all aspects of how he's manipulating the way you feel about every scene.
Yeah, this is this kind of sci-fi that's, I guess, for lack of a better word, boring. There's no action or anything like that. It's
no chase scenes,
just more straight ahead and just makes you kind of deal with things when you're watching it. I thought it was neat, really cool to see. Did you get a chance to see it, Jeff?
I did not.
Does this sound like something up your alley or something you like or not really?
Yeah, it was one of those ones where I was like, okay, I'm going to watch this, and then I noticed that that Resurrection popped up on my feed, and I was like, oh, I wanted to see this after our talk last week, so I watched that over a couple nights.
Yeah, this is definitely a movie that if you try to put it on in the background, you're going to kind of your attention is going to keep getting pulled to it. It's that good.
It draws you.
I'll talk about it next week. I'll do that every week now.
Jeff will just be a week behind us. The Harbinger.
The Harbinger. That's the wrong version.
I was going to say, I think I actually rented this one. I was like, this cannot be what Sean was talking about. I actually had to turn it off because I'm like, really?
Yeah, definitely not the same movie.
It came out in 2022, though.
Wow. So there are two movies called The Harbinger in 2022. The one I saw was just set during the pandemic. A woman gets a call from a friend from college to come and see her because she's having having the worst possible time, just not having any human interaction and just kind of slowly losing herself to the point where her friend is very concerned that she might not continue to live. So she risks going out in the pandemic and goes to her friend's apartment, and she knows she's going to be there for a little while. And while she's there, she begins to experience the same kinds of horrific nightmares that are afflicting her friend. There's this entity that's walking around in a plague doctor's mask, and it is causing these dreams to become unending to the point where the friend, the woman who actually lives in the apartment, she's Mavis. She's talking about how she had the dream about falling, which many people have had a dream about falling, but she had the dream and she actually hit the ground, and it just laid there in pain, like she was, and just couldn't wake up. And so the story progresses that this may or may not be a thing where people have just been disappeared by this being called the Harbinger, and where it goes from there, it's basically kind of just a meditation on pandemic time and the loneliness and the despair and the losing of people. And it's an interesting idea. I don't know if it's fully accomplished.
Yeah, I didn't watch that one. I watched this one, and I actually turned it off because it was so bad. But I did pay for it.
So what's it about?
Honestly, I got 5 minutes, and I'm like, seriously, Sean wants us to watch this? This does not sound like him at all.
Wow.
It's about a Harbinger.
Wait, did you watch this one too?
No, I did not watch it.
Okay.
I was like,
there we go.
There's 3 different Harbingers out there that I was like, wait a minute, can I just watch the episode of Buffy where they talk about the Harbingers?
Yours sounds way more interesting, although I do love upside down crosses, but they're kind of getting cliche.
Yeah.
All right. Jeanne Dielman.
Jeanne Dielman, yes. This is a movie from 1975, written and directed by Chantal Akerman, and it was recently named the #1 movie of all time by the critics and academics behind Sight and Sound. The story is, as such, a character named Jeanne, who is a mother, a housewife, and a sex worker. She has a very specific routine every day of getting her son off to school, cleaning the house, preparing for dinner, and in the afternoon she has a man over to have sex. She gets paid for that. He leaves. All very rudimentary. We see a lot of this in very extended takes where it's just her making dinner, it's her making coffee, it's her cleaning the house, it's her taking a bath after having had sex with her client, it's her having a very, very difficult and kind of just uneventful conversation with her son, and the end of a day and the start of the next one. The movie is 3 hours and 17 minutes overall of kind of presenting her very mundane routine in a very extended form. And while that can sound like this is going to be boring, the reality of it is that what Chantal Akerman is actually after here, at least in my reading of it, is that this is what life would be like under an extreme patriarchy, where a woman just lives to serve men. Her entire existence is about serving the needs of men, whether it's a husband or a sex worker client, or if it's her son, or even if it's just watching a neighbor's baby for an hour. Her life is in service to them at all times. And how soul-crushingly boring it would be to not have any type of life of your own, to have your life defined by what you are to men in this society. And that's really what Akerman is going for here throughout, is to say that if you were to force women into this extreme patriarchal life, you're condemning them to a life of unending boredom and pain and heartache. And why would you want that? Why would you want that for anyone? And That's my reading of it. You can have a different reading of it. That's fine. That's another great thing about what Ackerman does here is that she leaves the whole thing open to how you want it. So there's these extended scenes where Jeanne Dielman is just making dinner. She's just preparing a meatloaf, and your mind is just there to wander around the scene and figure out what's interesting to you, and kind of think about what you've seen before and ponder what could come next. Or it's just, again, you're just there to witness this routine until we get to the final day when something finally does happen in a very significant way. And that too is yet another revealing moment of what it would be like to live under this extreme and the extreme reaction to that extreme. And in that way, I found this movie rich and exciting and unique, unendingly fascinating. I think Delphine Seyrig delivers an amazing performance. She's so compelling, even as she's just, going through her shower routine. Like, it's just so simple. But then you've got Ackerman, the director. She's so good. So, like, a lot of people would have to have reams of dialogue to explain that she's not just a housewife, she's also a sex worker. And you'd have to go through and you'd see them making arrangements for the sex act and then the sex act itself and all that stuff. She tells you immediately that Jeanne Dielman is a sex worker simply by having a man leaving her house. They have pleasantries, he hands her a few bucks, and he leaves. The whole thing is just well explained, just that way. The second client, we see him arrive, they walk down a hallway, they go into her bedroom, then slowly the lighting changes in the hallway from daylight to nighttime. He comes out, fully dressed, he leaves. Again, it tells you everything you need to know about this encounter without having to tell you anything with dialogue. That's just incredibly good direction. I love this movie.
Jeff?
Hated it. No, I'm reducing it. But all the things that Sean said are true, especially the part about it being 3 hours and 17 minutes long. I used to be the person who was like, oh my God, I would talk about movies like this and try to get everybody to watch them. I don't have the attention span anymore. I get what they were going for. She was definitely had her, I'm going to do this in real time so you see the crushing mundanity of this woman's life. However, my life is plenty crushing and mundane, and I read the description that something changes her life, and I thought that would be towards the middle of the movie. Not gonna lie, after about an hour of watching her take a bath in real time, and I was like, wait, what everything was in real time, and I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, I fast forwarded through much of it, much of the mundane things, because when I heard something was going to happen, I didn't expect it to be in the last 7 minutes of the movie, honestly. The scenes where she was, she went out into the world and things were off, I feel like that could have all been expressed. She does her routine. It could have been, and I read something where Chantal Akerman said that she wanted to make a movie where you saw how regimented this woman's life was, and then so that you can see when it goes off the rails, how it goes off the rails. But she also wanted to make it so that there weren't a lot of cuts, because then you have to just be cutting the movie and you're just cutting it for cutting's sake. And I was like, no, you're cutting for the sake of the viewer who can understand, because like Sean said, that you understand that she's doing sex work at the beginning of the movie with just a few, cuts, a few motions of the man coming in and the man leaving. You understand all that. You get it. That could have been done with a little more fleet, in my opinion. The only reason to make this movie 3 hours and 17 minutes long is to prove a point that you're going to make somebody sit through it. I wanted to like it. This is one of those movies that's on the 1001 movies you must see before you die list, and it's been on my list because I hadn't seen it, and I get what she was going for. I appreciate that, but it was not for me. And the last 7 minutes left me wanting more. I want to see what happens after this happens. I want to see what, that's the movie I wanted to see. And I know that's, I guess me being basic, but I want to go and I want to watch a movie for escapism. And I wasn't escaping anything except this movie once every few minutes when I would fast forward to see if anything was going on. I'm sorry. Should I apologize?
All right, that's all right.
Well, no, it's easy to sit here and just pretend you like it. So I think I like that you're being honest with it. I am somewhere in between. I think it's weird that this is number one. But at the same time, I think it should be on the list for sure. I like the fact that it's, the movie Men that came out earlier this year. I liked it, but I just had a hard time with it because it was directed by a white man. When, I would have almost rather seen that story from a woman's perspective versus his. And if this were directed by a man, I'd hate this movie. But there also would have been a problem with it too. It just would have been different. It wouldn't have been the same movie. And that's what I appreciate about what she was going for with it. I do think it's very good, but it's almost too gimmicky for me to call it the best movie of all time. I think that's a little bit of a stretch. I almost, it's good that it's there because it made us watch it, but at the same time, I think it affects my opinion of it a little bit. If it was just on the list somewhere, I'd be like, okay, I get it. And I do get it, but it's hard to put this above like Vertigo and, some other movies that have been at the top of that list before.
If we were going through the list of 1001 movies that you should watch, and we were doing that every week, and this came up, I would possibly appreciate it more. I just feel like I get what she was going for, and I can appreciate what she was going for. I just was really, really bored with it.
That said, had I had to write a review like Sean did, like if I wrote Sean's review, that would have been fun. Like talking about this movie the way Sean did is entertaining. If there was much of a I agree with everything he said, so I don't know how much of a discussion we can actually have other than just like I agree.
Three white guys are going to have a hard time having that conversation, and I felt weird having that conversation in the review and talking about that from that perspective, because I'm a guy and I don't know what it's like to have and a friend of mine, my best friend, literally said to me, "You'll never understand this," and I agree. I won't I'll never completely understand that from the perspective of a woman, especially now considering the abortion situation. So I still
what though, she was right, but this gives you an appreciation, because I did appreciate,
right,
I got the mundanity of her life and how she just saw no hope in her life. I got that and I appreciated that. I just feel like it could have been done in 2 hours instead of 3 hours and 14 minutes or 17
I think the length is intentional. I think it's a fully
I know.
I think it's a taunt and a challenge for you to people who if you think you can endure what life would be like for a woman in this situation. And
I absolutely cannot.
I refer to it as extreme patriarchy because I think, first of all, people are going to be stupid and just try and go, well, that's not the definition, the direct definition of extreme is what I'm talking about. Yeah. I don't think this is necessarily people call this movie they call it realism. And I think this is much more outsized than that, because I think in reality, Jeanne Dielman would have a lot of different options that she could take on any given day. But under an extreme oppressive patriarchy where things have been decided for her, and I think there are aspects of that Ackerman hints at but doesn't spell out, that she's been kind of pushed into this, and she was raised and indoctrinated into this situation where she's constantly serving the needs of men, or if she's not serving them, she needs to be in a place where she can be to serve them in case they need something. And I think that's I'm reading that, but I think that's there. I think that's the reason why she's sitting there just trying to find a good cup of coffee is because it's in case some man might show up and need something of her, because that's what she's been told to do her entire life. And the length and the constant, just the spreading out of her day and her routine is very much to that point about how soul-crushingly, mind-numbingly dull that would be and painful, heartache, genuine heartache that would result from having that forced on you as your life. And of course she's going to act out as she does at the end. Of course she will, especially with that fucking guy and that stupid smug look on his face. And the idea that he did something in that moment. He didn't do shit in that moment, but he's acting like he did something. I wanted to stab the guy. It was truly pissed me off.
Spoiler alert. Well, I feel like, okay, so she's apparently never had an orgasm. He gives her one. And I mean, I don't know how he wasn't moving. I thought he was asleep on top of her. And then when she started to have one, I was like, oh, this is because I had read that, she has an orgasm that changes her entire life. And I thought that was going to happen in the middle of the movie. And then, like it would have been great to have, half the time her crushing mundane life, she has an orgasm and then she sees all the possibilities instead of just stabbing the guy who gave her one. Because to me, that says that she has a choice and she has agency over what she's doing and how she's living her life. Because if stuff is different, she's going to have to do something different. And she, now she's like, no, I got to kill him because if he sees that I had fun, he'll want to do it again. And
now I think I read it more as this was like her whole thing about her routine and the sex work is her job. I think the whole point of showing her bathing routine even is just to show that this is not erotic, this is not sexy, this is not fun. That's why we don't see hardly any nudity in that scene. She's seated in the bathtub, she's covered up. Very specifically, there's a jump cut from her in the bathtub to being nearly fully dressed because, again, Ankerman doesn't want you to linger on her, in the typical straight male gaze. She wants you she wants you to see this as this is part of her routine to the point where she boils potatoes while doing this. And the time it takes usually for her to finish with a client is the time it takes for her to boil potatoes. This guy has forced this upon her, this orgasm, this unwanted thing. It's just a physical act. It's not an accomplishment. He didn't give her a gift. She didn't ask for this orgasm. This is her job. And he is now sitting there acting as if he did something, acting as if he's accomplished something by giving her an orgasm. And I think that's where that's where the disconnect is. Plus, he's laying there not getting dressed. He's breaking up her routine. He's kind of just sitting there with that stupid look on his face. I read that as this is her anger. And finally, I'm done. I'm just done with men and this attitude of, I'm accomplished. I do things. I'm a man. I think that's what that was for me. That's my reading, but any reading is not wrong on this one. Because, again, Ackerman invites you to read this how you want.
I don't really have anything to add other than I agree. I mean, that's the thing is I don't even know what my take is on that. I think I tend to agree with Sean a little more on that, but I don't know. I suck at talking. Anything else on Jeanne Dielman before we move on?
No.
I agree with it being on the list. I don't know, number one. I mean, it's not a movie. I'm never going to watch it again, but I'm happy I did, and I do as a work of cinema and as like a taunt or a challenge
right.
to people who just try to passively watch movies. I think this movie is kind of wonderful in that way, and I kind of love it even more as that challenge or a taunt.
Well, you'll never forget it. It'll be easy to talk about forever now.
Have you guys seen the fake reaction video that they did where, you know that guy Soups, Matt Ramos? He's a TikTok, YouTube guy, and he does reaction videos and whatever. And they always has him and a friend, or sometimes just him, and they've got the inset of what they're watching at the bottom. And then he's like, "Oh my god!" And then so somebody edited in the inset of the Sight and Sound top 100 movies or whatever, and it like Vertigo, and he's like, "Whoa!" And then this comes up, and he's like, "Oh my god!" So of course I had to make one with the inset photo was Sallow.
We do love Sallow on this show.
Oh.
Big fan. Especially when Zach watched it.
Oh, Lord.
All right. It is on, we watched HBO Max. Is that where we saw it?
Yeah.
If you want to be taunted, it is there to watch.
A lot of the Criterion movies are on there, and stuff that you aren't necessarily going to be able to order right away on Blu-ray or DVD because they're not the most popular ones, so they're not, you can't just walk into Barnes and Noble on the half price sale and buy them. Yeah. But like this, that's where I watch this. A lot of their stuff. If you go through the list, the 1001 movies, a lot of those movies are on there. That's how I'm going through it, is watching HBO Max.
Unless we make them classics, so this podcast will make it hard for you to get there. Just kidding. Up next, we go from a classic to Violent Night.
Violent Night stars David Harbour as Santa Claus. This version of Santa Claus is sad. He's drunk. He's thinking that nobody cares about Santa anymore. Meanwhile, happening in the story is kicking in with a very rich family, the Lightstone family, gathering for their Christmas. There's a father, a mother, a little girl. There's his sister and her movie star boyfriend, and her son. And then there's the mother, played by Beverly D'Angelo. The guy we're following, Alex Hassel, I think his name is. He's trying to leave his family business to try and repair his relationship with his wife and daughter. And all of that is interrupted because mom has $300 million in cash in the basement, and terrorists are showing up to steal it. Sarah's led by John Leguizamo, who has code names for all of his minions, and his code name is Ebenezer Scrooge. Ha ha ha! It's I don't hate this movie. I didn't. I went into it with an attitude. I thought I was going to hate it because I don't like movies that make Santa Claus the bad guy. That really is something that really kind of puts me in a wrong position, and I become like one of those pearl-clutching media watchdogs. Like, leave Santa alone. But thankfully here, at the very least, they do put Santa in a very violent context where there's a lot of dead people and a lot of blood and a lot of guts. But at the very least, Santa's the good guy. He starts working with the little girl who gets him who just happens to catch him and talk to him over a two-way radio. And she asks Santa for his help, and he decides to try and help her. And through helping her, he rediscovers what it was like to be a warrior before he became Santa, because he was like a Viking warrior before he became Santa Claus. I had fun. This movie made me laugh, especially the third act. Made me laugh a lot and loud. The little girl, played by a young girl named Leah Bailey, it just has a one-word line at the end of the movie where she refers to this particular weapon that Santa uses, or had used when he was a Viking warrior, and she just says she says the name of this thing with such glee, and I can't remember the name of it now, but
Skull Crusher,
Smasher or something. It was just
Skull Crusher.
And the way she said it is just so hilarious. I laughed very, very loudly.
Yeah, she's like, Skull Crusher.
She delivered the line beautifully, but she was great throughout. She gets to do a whole Home Alone thing that is very funny, taking Home Alone to its violent extremes. I did, in the end, I liked this movie. I didn't expect to, but I liked it.
Jeff?
So here's my take on it. It was Bad Santa meets the movie that they were going to show on in the movie Scrooge, where Santa has to fight back. That's what I was like. Wait, they made that movie from Scrooge. I love myself a good gory movie. The cast was perfect for what they were doing. The husband that was the movie star, quote unquote, Jean Claude Van Dumbass is what Beverly D'Angelo referred to him as. He
Yes.
he's one of those guys who, if you ever look at IMDb the way I do, and you're looking at like an episode of Law and Order, SVU, in particular, and there's like one guy who you're like, oh, that guy's like, he's interesting, and then you look at his credits, and it's all pictures of him posing with the guys on set, like he was an extra on a Ray Liotta movie. So there's him posing with Ray Liotta, and he like, it says extra uncredited next to his name, and that kind of guy who's like, oh yeah, look at my IMDb page, dude. Those are all just selfies that you took with stars on movies that you may have been working craft services for.
Yeah,
that was one of my favorite like kind of moments, because he was like, yeah, I was in this movie and I played a lot of soldiers, and I'm like, oh my god, all those guys play soldiers or mercenaries, or I guarantee you half the guys who played the mercenaries at the end have those kind of IMDb pages. I haven't looked yet, but it was like such a meta Hollywood joke for me that I loved that part. This was so much fun. Beverly D'Angelo, I thought that was that was good casting, getting somebody who's known for a Christmas classic into this. Mm-hmm. My only real issue with it was John Leguizamo. He's a smart ass guy, but he's never really the ringleader.
Yeah.
It was like he's not Hans Gruber.
Right.
When we're talking about other Christmas movies, he's not Hans Gruber. He's like the smart ass sidekick to Hans Gruber. So he really kind of took me out of it a couple times. But I feel like if they're going to give him Why Do I Hate Christmas, it needs to be a little better than we always had shitty Christmases. Well, you know what? Everybody had a shitty Christmas.
Yeah, and I also don't buy the idea that he's going to go toe-to-toe with Harper. I mean, Harper is this big, beefy dad bod guy who you definitely buy as an ass kicker. And looking at him up against John Leguizamo, you just don't... Even Harper, near death, like having had the shit kicked out of him, I still didn't buy the fact that John Leguizamo could hang with him.
And they really padded John Leguizamo's costume, because he's not that big.
No.
Yeah, I didn't see it, but Jeff said everything I was thinking. When I saw the trailer, I kept waiting for him to be like, Lee Majors.
Oh, if he was still alive, they would have given him he would have been somebody in this
Beverly
movie.
D'Angelo's husband.
I kept waiting for it to be called The Night the Reindeer Died or whatever, but I'm glad you guys enjoyed it.
It was fun.
It was better than I thought it was going to be, and I think that's the main thing that stands out for me. Because, like I said, I went into it with a bad attitude.
Speaking of go ahead.
I said it will be one of those movies that I watch. I don't know if I'll watch it every Christmas, but it'll be in my rotation of Christmas movies, probably every year.
How was your attitude going into Silent Night, Deadly Night, Sean, our classic?
Well, he's not really Santa, so it's not triggering me in that way. So I guess that's okay. Silent Night, Deadly Night, 1984, directed by Charles E. Seller and starring Robert Brian Wilson as a young man who gets traumatized at a very young age by seeing Santa Claus murder his parents. He grows up in an orphanage. He's repeatedly punished by the Mother Superior there, and that she does not really care about his particular past trauma. She continues to sort of inflict it upon him over and over again, it would seem. He grows up to become a big strapping teenager, takes a job at a toy store where he ends up having to be Santa for on Christmas, and that's a terrible idea. Wish somebody said that hadn't happened. He ends up going crazy and starts killing people in not particularly interesting ways.
Oh, come on.
I didn't find it particularly great. I didn't hate it. I couldn't get invested. I couldn't find the camp of it, like the really good camp of it. Just wasn't there. The repeated things of him saying like naughty or punish.
Punish.
Like, it didn't make me laugh. I I just didn't think that there was enough there. It just seems so thin. His, the line between how he ended up where he ended up going, like the random babysitter that he ends up killing and her boyfriend, like was just, it just sort of happened. And there wasn't any motivation to lead to that. And they just kind of come up with little set pieces to do that just didn't resonate with me. I liked the joke about repeatedly killing the wrong Santa Claus. That was funny. That has kind of had a potential there, but that joke doesn't quite have enough energy to it. Just like the whole movie really just doesn't have quite enough of the camp energy that I think it intended, but just doesn't have. And it also just doesn't have. Without that, it doesn't have the scare factor. It's not a scary movie. There's nothing. The kills aren't particularly gory or interesting to me.
See, I don't know that they were intending it to be funny. I found it like really dark but campy, which is what was intriguing to me, I guess. Part of me spent the whole time going, I wonder if Toby Hooper had made this movie, what it'd be like. Because I'm definitely interested by the trauma of the kid. And I don't know. It was just, I don't know. I just found it more interesting and dark, and I liked the darkness more than the fun. I don't need, I've seen a million campy fun movies. I didn't need fun. I think they were trying to go for Halloween at Christmas, and they were not trying to make, a funny, obviously I don't think Freddy was around yet, but I don't think it was fully meant to be a comedy. I think they were trying to be serious. They just weren't that good at it.
I think the main character's performance then kind of defies that.
Well, it's 1984. You got to keep that in mind.
It's funny in all the wrong ways. He's not a good actor.
Right.
So if they weren't going for laughs with him, then...
His previous credit was Santa Barbara, where he played a guy who got killed.
Yeah.
In the first scene. The first episode, he was murdered. So
I'm saying if they weren't intending for us to laugh at him, then the movie is truly unsuccessful.
Okay, well, you thought Jeanne was long. Here I go. I fucking love this movie, and I love it because I think it's campy. And the reason I think it's campy is because it is played 100% straight.
Right.
They give you beat by beat why he's going to do what he's going to do. From witnessing his parents getting killed to Mother Superior torturing him for his entire childhood. By the way, Lillian Chauvin, she was on Friends. She's known for 100 different things. She is serving camp in this movie. She is, as the gays say, serving cunt in this movie. Are we going to get thrown off of iTunes for that? Sorry, you can leave me.
I think we're
good. Every single beat in this movie it's like they want you to know that this kid is going to go bad and why he's going to go bad, and every shot is showing you why he's going to go bad. From, he's peeping on the two of the older kids in the orphanage having sex, and Mother Superior, what they were doing was very naughty, and they must be punished. Punishment is absolute. And he just repeats this stuff. And it's, as a kind of if you look at it straight as a psychological movie, yes, you understand all his motivations. It makes perfect sense. And even Sister Margaret, who is so unintentionally funny, she's the one who gives him the job. And, you wouldn't want a kid. Well, let me just introduce you to Billy. And then Mr. Sims, the guy who owns the toy store, he looks him up and down with elevator eyes, and they like kind of linger on his crotch. And you're like, okay, you can start Monday. It's so great. The fact that apparently this toy store never sells any toys, because when he goes and he starts and they're doing the montage of, this is he's meeting everybody at work and he's such a helpful boy and blah, blah, blah. And there's the same Jabba the Hutt playset that I actually have right over here behind me. The same one is in the same place with the same figures next to it, and that never changes even on Christmas Eve. I'm like, I know it's 1984, and I know Star Wars was kind of winding down when it came to toys then, but you would have sold at least one to a clueless aunt. Anyway, and they still have Easter bunnies and stuff up. It's hilarious. It's unintentionally hilarious. But Sister Margaret, she says, like, when they kill the Santa outside the orphanage, and it's like, oh no, it was a man in the 50s. Oh no, that was Father Delaney or whatever his name was. Well, they told him to stop. Well, of course he couldn't stop. Of course he's deaf. Who is a fucking deaf Santa? Come on. And they played that straight, not as camp, and that's what makes it campy.
Right.
Lillian Chauvin, just he would like Santa. He would sit on Santa Claus's lap, and he would like it. And instead of having, I know that like historically nuns on film are portrayed as the worst people ever. My mom went to Catholic school. My aunts went to Catholic school. They all told me how bad they were, so I believe it. But the fact that she knows that this kid has a Santa Claus thing, and she still makes him do this stuff, she's a sadist. And that's partially why he is the way he is. And I can't believe you said the kills aren't inventive. When he impales Linnea Quigley on the antlers, come on, Sean. You had to even appreciate that. Even you. If Terrence Malick did it, you'd like it.
Oh, that's good. That's great. I love that.
I've seen far more creative, and even in the movie Antlers.
Oh God.
I guess now that you've talked, just kind of here's my experience going through it. Early on, I'm like, part of me is wanting it to be a different movie, like having somebody who knows what they're doing to make the movie. As I get through it, I'm like, if you did this realistically, he'd just be in a mental asylum the whole time. It'd be kind of boring. So then it works out that it has to be this bad movie, but because he's 100% right, because it's bad is what makes it watchable. And then, which is the weirdest, it's kind of like a better version of The Room. They're being completely genuine with what they're doing. Which is a very dark idea, but I don't know. I found it way more interesting and enjoyable, and a movie we probably never would have seen if it wasn't banned because of the idea of what it is. So I guess
the reputation, though, is kind of probably what hurt it for me, is that it has that reputation of having been so transgressive at the time, and it just feels it feels kind of mundane now compared to things I've seen since then, and it's certainly not something that should have ever been banned. It's
well, it was bullshit at the time.
Yeah,
that's when you get the Mama Bear blog people who, they have too much time on their hands, so they're not going to take the time to watch. They're just going to see a Santa Claus arm with an axe. Oh my God, a killer Santa! We have to ban this movie. Well, just watch it. It's so dumb. Your kids are not going to be scared by this movie.
When I watched it back in high school, and I didn't really remember it. The only thing I remembered is while we were watching it, my friend had a crucifix on his wall, and Jesus literally fell off the cross and got caught up in the rope that was for the curtains. And so
Bungee Jesus?
Yeah. He almost I've since changed the story around and said his neck got caught and was hanging, but he really just kind of got caught up in the rope. But that was made for a fun experience. But I couldn't remember the movie. I just remember that, and that's all I ever associated this movie with.
I was 12 when this came out, and I remember, I saw the commercial for it, and I've loved horror movies since I was 7, and my parents took me to see the Amityville Horror because I'd already read the book at 7. I loved horror movies. I was like, oh, I want to see this movie so bad. That's great. And they pulled it, and they weren't going to show it. And I was really pissed until it came on a video cassette, and the guy down the street let me rent it, even though he didn't ask my parents first.
Well, yeah, and I remember my video store, even in like the late 90s, had you must be 18 to rent, which was annoying. Again, it builds it up to be something that's not. Of course, when Jesus falls off the wall, that adds something to it.
Did you guys watch the unrated version or the regular version?
I think I just watched the regular version.
Just whatever Amazon had.
Oh, okay. The unrated version that Scream Factory released a couple of years ago has, you get a little more death scenes. They couldn't clean it up, so it kind of takes you out of it for a second. But their death, they show from beginning to end. The boyfriend of Linnea Quigley's character. When he gets thrown out the window, you see like a lot more of the glass sticking out of him. You see the decapitation on the sled, which another campy moment is when they're like, oh my God, this hill is virgin. And there's literally footprints and sled marks throughout this entire thing. I was like, that's a virgin in the way like Courtney Love is a virgin.
Well,
I think part of that one doesn't resonate with me either because I've seen it so many times and so many different YouTube videos, people using that as a punchline. So kind of takes the impact away. I think the first time I saw that, maybe it was interesting, but the 50th time that I see the guy get his head cut off that way, I was like, yeah, whatever. I just don't think this movie for me, and again, I don't want to take anything away from your enjoyment of it. I just think for me, it's not quite bad enough, and it's certainly not good enough. It lingers in this sort of uncanny valley between there that's just not interesting enough for me.
That's fair.
I do enjoy watching movies like this, just kind of getting in the head of the director. Like, why in the hell? Like the first when he kills the mom and dad at the beginning, it's like, let's pull our boobs out before I kill her, just for the a killer's not going to do that unless he's going to do more than that. Just so we can show boobs in this movie, which I don't know. That's the one thing I could have probably done without. But it's still just fascinating that, like you were saying, why does he go to that teenager's house where they just show him fucking on a pool table? There's no reason for him to be there, but because they get there, it makes it kind of funny because it's stupid. It makes no sense. But then they know he's going to go back to the orphanage, even though there's no reason for them to know that.
Because they wanted the payoff of, whether or not he's going to kill the child. And the payoff was kind of just okay.
I mean, this is not high art by any means. This is not going to... No, there's no, like... I did like, have you been naughty? No, I've been, have you haven't been naughty at all? No, Santa Claus. So he gives her a fucking box cutter. I mean, it's so stupid.
And I was listening to a podcast maybe a year ago about just these kind of horror movies, and just someone who likes horror in general, and their take was, lately there's been too many high art horror movies like the Ari Aster movies that they're ready for the camp to come back again. And I don't know, there's people that truly do appreciate how bad this is as a work of art, if that makes sense.
I am one of those people.
And
I love this kind of movie. I absolutely love
that appreciation of it. I can understand it. I don't feel it, but I can understand it.
Well, you have to watch everything. You have to watch Darby of the Dead.
And like I said, I do. I love like camp horror movies. I like Orphan. To me, the recent Orphan sequel is a wonderfully camp horror movie. That movie is so completely bonkers, over the top, weird, crazy, stupid, poorly made. I love it.
And that might actually land that on my top 10 list this year. I enjoyed that movie.
It's one of some of the most fun I've had at the movies this year is that silly, stupid movie, but it's silly and stupid in the most effective and wonderful kind of way.
So I'm the oldest person in this podcast right now, and I'm cool with that because I actually lived through the slasher boom of the 80s, the late 70s and 80s, and this, like, every holiday got its own slasher movie after Halloween. Well, okay, after Black Christmas, after Halloween stole we'll talk about that later this month. But as each holiday got their horror equivalent, this one, was inevitable. There was Christmas Evil. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Before this one, where Fiona Apple's dad plays the guy who's obsessed with Christmas.
So I recall it. I don't recall much of it. But
yeah. We should make that our classic. That one is bonkers. You think this is fucked up? That one is. This is the one everybody remembers. But like real, like, I don't want to say real horror fans, but real like deep cut horror fans who like the cult stuff love Christmas Evil. And Christmas, there's Don't Open Till Xmas. There's Silent Night, Deadly Night, Christmas Evil, Silent Night, Bloody Night, all these like Christmas horror movies that really were riding that wave of holiday horrors. Friday the 13th and Graduation Day and all of that. So I was around to see that happen in real time, and I think that's possibly why I have such a soft spot for this movie. Seeing the controversy, not being able to go to Showcase Cinemas in Milan and see it, and very disappointed about it. My dad was even going to take me. That's how much I wanted to see this. But I think that's why I have such a soft spot for this movie and that whole slasher genre. And I'm hoping, while I love Hereditary and Midsommar and all The Witch and all these elevated A24 horror movies, I will sit and I would watch this 3 times before I'd ever watch Jeanne again.
I know you're not really a metalhead, but have you ever heard of the band Ice Nine Kills?
Yes.
Do you like them at all? Have you ever? My son's obsessed with them, and through him, I've kind of like, they're like show tunes meet metal. It's kind of neat.
That sounds awesome.
You'll have to. Maybe we should do a bonus with one of their records, Sean. They basically take all the singer's favorite horror movies, and he just makes songs about them. Usually, the songs are better than the movie. Like his Child's Play song's way better than Child's Play. But again, it's very screamy and. But I don't know. It's just weird. I just wasn't curious if that was something you were into or not.
I wish. Thinking about. I think they should actually remake Jeanne, whatever her last name is. Do you know who should star in it? Lindsay Lohan.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
I just want Sean to hit me.
You just got to get your compulsory mention of Lindsay Lohan.
I told you this was going to be a Lindsay Lohan bashing podcast from now on.
I am fascinated by I googled the Christmas horror movies, and there are just so many of them. And the fact is, next week we have 2 of them. One of them, another one that's actually being released theatrically. It was kind of, which just kind of shocked me. But then you looked at I was looking at things that I've written about before, like a movie called Sleigh Bells, which is about Christmas and 3 girls showing their boobs and horror. But the one that I hate, the one I truly hate, the one that gets to me on that level of don't make Santa the bad guy is the Bill Goldberg movie.
Santa Sleigh.
Santa Sleigh.
That movie is fucking garbage. Not just because Bill Goldberg can't act for shit. That is just a shitty, shitty movie from every possible aspect.
You don't like a Jewish Santa?
I don't like anything about that fucking movie.
I find it fascinating that there's like James Caan's in that movie.
And as much as I would enjoy seeing Chris Kattan have his head cut off, I mean...
Well, the whole cast is Jewish. That's the joke. But it's not a good movie.
Awful.
But he met his wife on that movie, so...
Ugh.
I'm down for doing a Christmas horror episode anytime, because there are so many. Like Better Watch Out.
Well, even like Rare Exports, some of the newer ones.
Krampus.
Yeah.
As we're recording it, it's Krampusnacht, so we should. I watch Krampus a couple days before Krampusnacht, and every year, and I forget that it's Krampusnacht. I should be watching it tonight, not 2 nights ago. But it was on my Vudu, and I was like, "Oh, I haven't watched this." So
I didn't love that one either.
So are we doing Christmas Evil next week then instead of Silent Night, Deadly Night 2?
Sure. Why not?
Yeah, because we already talked about Silent Night, Deadly Night 2. All we have to do next week is say Garbage Day, and because they use the entire.
Realistically, Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 is just the first film with Garbage Day attached.
Yeah.
It's all. Have you seen it, Bob? The entire thing is just a flashback to this movie told by his little brother in therapy, and then the little brother becomes Santa Claus and goes around shooting people.
Is it better?
No. Oh my God.
Except I would say Garbage Day is better than anything in this movie. So I mean, in terms of the laugh line. That it accomplished what I want.
But usually by the time you're doing the sequel, you're trying to be funny and goofy, because now you just want to make money.
Well, when you get to the third sequel, that's usually kind of where things like Freddy started to go off the rails a little bit. You know, they wanted to make a good sequel to part 2 or for Silent Night, Deadly Night, but they couldn't get the financing, and they thought, oh, you know what, we can just have him talking in therapy, and he can be talking about the first movie, and then it's in a way it's kind of like Rob Zombie's Halloween. You get the backstory, which is the first movie, and then they go on to the second part, which is like the remake part, and you're just like, oh, this is pretty terrible. It's the best part about that movie is him shooting the guy who's taking his garbage out and going, "Garbage day." That is literally the only reason to watch that, and you can watch that on YouTube for 5 seconds.
And that guy, at the very least, the guy who plays the little brother in the second movie, becomes the killer, that guy at least gets the memo about being completely bad. I don't think he's trying to be bad. I think he's just bad, but he's bad in a way that's very, very interesting. Far more interesting than the bad of this movie for me.
Well, no, I get you. I just found I guess I was more interested in kind of like when you watch The Room, what was he thinking when they did this? That's where my interest kind of came into play. And then I just found myself, by the end of it, I'm like, I think I kind of like this. That's where I ended up at it.
Now, only you guys and anybody who happens to be watching on YouTube are going to like this, but we have Billy and we have Ricky.
Holy shit.
They actually made action figures of these guys, and I own them.
That's awesome. Is that part of your Christmas display every year?
Yes, it's I put them out every Christmas. I really wish that Ricky had a little button on him that when you pushed it, he would say "Garbage Day," but he does not. Scream Factory and NECA really missed an opportunity there.
Absolutely.
So.
All right. That is all of our movies this week. In 1992, what came out? Damage, The Distinguished Gentleman, and To Grandmother's House We Go. Is
that another horror movie?
Depends on your grandma.
Distinguished Gentleman is the only one I remember. That's the one with Eddie Murphy becoming a congressman, I think it is.
Yeah, he just...
Washington, and it's actually not terrible. It's like one of the last good Eddie Murphy movies, kind of good. It's not great. It definitely fails on most levels, but there are moments there of he gets himself elected essentially by using his middle name as his last name because it's the same name as the guy who was the congressman before him.
But he died.
And so that's a pretty good bit. Because that's what Chuck Grassley keeps getting elected on his name every year after year after year, regardless of himself.
But that bit,
just built for the name, they recognize.
I mean, that bit makes the whole movie work. Because it's such a good idea and such a realistic idea too. And
then it does kind of become the kind of a very bad version of Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
Right. Just kind of a cheesy little comedy. Yeah. Next week, we've got Christmas, Bloody Christmas, Matilda, The Mean One, hopefully The Whale, and maybe a movie called Spoiler Alert. I don't know.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think, coming. That's yeah.
Whether Sean watches all of them or not, we'll see. But
I've been excited about Spoiler Alert. Michael Ausiello is the guy who wrote the book that it's based on, and Jim Parsons is in it from Big Bang Theory, and I happen to like Big Bang Theory. I know that's not a popular opinion, but I do like that show. My mom loved that show. She loved him.
I think it's a pretty popular opinion.
No, not really. Not among the cool kids. If you like Big Bang Theory, you've got a taste problem.
Well, yeah, I hate it, but I'm not. I feel like I'm the minority.
No. Apparently now you're the majority.
It's the vocal majority, maybe, but let's see here. Our classic is Christmas Evil, and in 1992, A Few Good Men, Forever Young, The Muppet Christmas Carol, and Passion Fish all come out.
Really?
I think it's pretty funny that our classic is Christmas Evil the week that the Muppet Christmas Carol comes out.
4 Christmas movies to talk about.
There's a special Christmas episode again next week.
All right, let's see here. Where is Flickchart? You guys can just look at our Facebook page. There's the show notes. Come on. This moves, you stupid thing. There we go. All right. Hot Shots Part 2 or Role Models?
Role models. That movie, I don't like that kind of comedy, but that movie made me laugh so hard for so long.
Yeah, I love that movie. And even though it kind of ruined Zach and Mary, and I wanted Kevin Smith to be successful, I still love it. Misery, What About Bob?
Misery.
Misery.
Although I would argue that What About Bob is far more miserable than Misery.
Misery is a Christmas movie. It's a movie that is not explicitly a Christmas movie, but it
Like Die
seems
Hard?
like a Christmas movie. Yes. Well, Die Hard is explicitly a Christmas movie, if you ask John McTiernan. So is Die Hard 2.
Lethal Weapon takes place during Christmas, and no one ever brings that up.
Yeah.
It is a Christmas movie.
I like it better than Die Hard. K-Pax, A Red Planet.
Red Planet. K-Pax
Yep.
is fucking flaming garbage. Unless we
better
can
with Nicolas
switch,
Cage.
Jeff, get on it. Put Nicolas Cage into K-Pax.
Oh, God. Now that I'm officially on the podcast full time, I have to do that kind of stuff, don't I?
Turn to go with Kevin Spacey's movies into Nicolas Cage movies. That's what we want.
Vegas Vacation, The Great Outdoors.
Great Outdoors. I'm just going to assume Vegas Vacation is awful. I don't remember it.
The Great Outdoors. Chevy Chase, he's not particularly funny to me.
He's like, he is to comedies what Dustin Hoffman is to dramas. Just kind of.
Oh, you shouldn't have said that.
But it's true. It's true.
I used to love.
Now Santa's going to punish you.
Have you heard what Chevy's doing now? He's like appearing at the opening of chicken places in like Arlington
Yeah.
Heights.
Yeah.
He is to movies what Pete Rose is to baseball.
God, I love it.
Except he's not barred from winning awards.
He's not intentionally barred from winning awards,
well,
but he's not winning awards.
He's not barred. He's not going to win any, but he's not barred from it.
Out of Sight, Artificial Intelligence.
This is tough. I like both of these movies a lot. I'm going to go with Out of Sight. I think Out of Sight is the more rewatchable version, so I'm going to go with that one.
I have not seen AI in 20 some years. I got the DVD for $1 at a swap meet not too long ago, but I'm going to say Out of Sight. I finally watched that a couple of years ago, and I really, really, really liked it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not a big AI fan. Captain Marvel, Diamonds Are Forever.
Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel.
Sicko, The Men Who Stare at Goats.
Sicko. Men Who Stare at Goats is such a great idea, and I'm baffled how they fucked that up.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Sicko, too. I enjoy Michael Moore's movies, even if sometimes he's a little much to take.
Yeah.
Castaway, Ratatouille.
Ratatouille.
Agreed. The Abyss, The Amityville Horror.
Amityville Horror.
Yeah.
The first horror movie I ever saw in the theater, like I said earlier.
Do you like it?
I actually do. First of all, you get James Brolin in his tidy whities. Second of all, there's just so many little parts of it that make it. It's one of those ones I can watch over and over. I don't necessarily have to sit and watch it every time, but from the dorky looking real estate agent, and she senses something, to Rod Steiger, to Aunt Liz, the from Another World, who played the nun who pukes, does the movie puke, where it's just like whatever she can hold in her mouth.
I admire some aspects of it. I think the only thing that keeps me from liking the Amityville Horror is the whole thing that goes around where people are like, oh, that was a real thing. Fuck off. Fuck off. It's not based on a fucking true story, you fucking morons.
Well,
Otherwise, it's a well-accomplished horror film. Those fucking Conjuring people, whoever the fuck their name is, those assholes, Ed and Lorraine Warren, continue to ruin a lot of good horror.
Are you telling me that they're not real?
See, I like The Conjuring better. I don't know. As a kid reading the book, checking out from the library from the nonfiction section and actually buying into all that bullshit was fun. And then I thought, I didn't think it was that accomplished. I thought it was kind of a mess. But I haven't gone back and watched it in a long time. I don't know. That experience reading the book as a little kid, hiding it from my parents because I wasn't allowed to read it. I don't think...
You want to hear...
Go ahead.
Oh, you want to hear a funny story about me reading that book?
Yes.
So my parents got the book, and I was fascinated by the picture of the house on the cover, with the flies on it. And so I read it. My mom was, "What are you reading?" And I said, and I showed her. She's like, "You should be reading that." I'm like, "No, it's really good. I really like it." I was probably 7 years old. 7 or 8. I don't remember when it came here, but it came out in 79, so I was like 7 or 8. And I finished the book, and my parents went out, and I had a babysitter, and I was always that kid who did whatever the fuck they wanted whenever they wanted, and I would trying to crawl up into the cupboard and get a tub of frosting to eat with a spoon. And that kind of stuff. That's why I have a weight problem. That's why I need to watch The Whale. Anyway, my parents came home and I came out of my bedroom, and my mom was like, "What are you doing up?" And I meant to call my babysitter a horror, like the Amityville Horror, but I was 8 and it came out as "she's a whore." Everybody's face just like, "What the fuck did you just say?" And I was like, "She's a whore." And they're like, "What?" And I had to go run and get the book out of my room and be like, "Hold it up. She's a horror. She's a whore." So then everybody laughed and thought it was funny, and I didn't get in trouble for being up past my bedtime. So,
Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas or The Skeleton Key?
Fear and Loathing.
Skeleton Key. That was fun.
I agree, but I like Fear and Loathing a little bit more. Who's yours? Top Secret.
Top Secret.
Top Secret.
Sure.
I don't like feel-good sports movies. Or feel-bad sports movies.
I like feel-bad sports movies, like Rocky.
Like Alive, when they all... I haven't seen either of these.
Yeah, I've not seen Easter Parade, that's for sure.
All right. Practical Magic, Men of Honor.
Now we know what to watch for Easter, though. Practical Magic, Men of Honor is just it's a snooze.
Yeah.
We used to go to the movies like at midnight on Friday nights, and we actually went to Men of Honor, the midnight showing. It was awful.
You slept right through that one.
I tried really hard because I wanted to, like, if De Niro was in it, I wanted it to be good, and I pretended everything he did was good at the time.
As many people did at that time.
Even though it was 3 a.m. and I'm just wrapping up the movie. Grumpier Old Men, First Blood.
Gotta be honest, I love Grumpier Old Men. I'll watch that tomorrow. So I'm not gonna watch First Blood again unless I'm forced to. So yeah, it's Grumpier Old Men for me.
I'll probably agree, but I think that First Blood was actually probably Stallone's one of his best performances.
Yeah.
Before he just became this ultra Reaganite guy who, let's go kill all the people in Afghanistan and Russia. Yeah. He became Rambo. He should have died in First Blood.
I'll go First Blood, but we can let Grumpy Old Men have it. Wow, this is fun. Passion of the Christ. The Nice Guys.
The Nice Guys.
Absolutely The Nice Guys. Fuck Mel Gibson.
Yeah, I hate torture porn. Secret Window, Tangled.
2, I think, very good movies, actually. But I happen to have a really strong admiration for Secret Window, so I'm going there.
Yeah, same.
Agreed. 48 Hours, The Parent Trap.
48 Hours, I guess.
Well, I'm going to pick Lindsay Lohan.
Second best performance or third best performance?
Herbie Fully Loaded and Mean Girls.
Oh, you're forgetting Another World, where she played Allie Fowler for 2 years.
I like Freaky Friday.
That's the other one. I actually like that movie because as much as I bag on her for that stupid fucking Christmas movie, Lindsay Lohan could act, and I love Jamie Lee Curtis, so the two of them together, I will watch the fuck out of that movie.
The One, Marie Antoinette.
Marie Antoinette.
Yeah, I haven't seen The One, but
The One is such a great idea, and it's another one that has this really great idea of Jet Li fighting Jet Li, multiple Jet Lis fighting each other. Great idea. Like it's like Highlander, but with just Jet Li. That's a great idea, and they fuck it up.
It's like the Hong Kong version of Multiplicity.
Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, The Philadelphia Story.
Philadelphia Story.
If you had said Nightmare on Elm Street 1, I would have picked that, but the Philadelphia Story, because Freddy's Dead is almost unwatchable.
Friday, The Adventures of Robin Hood, 1938.
Friday. Fuck Errol Flynn.
Moonlight, The Talented Mr. Ripley. Sean, have fun with this one.
Fuck, that's tough. This
one is hard.
Man, because I love The Talented Mr. Ripley and I love Moonlight. I love both these movies. And, man, damn, I don't know where to... I'm going to go with Ripley because I think I might watch that one first. I'm going to go Ripley.
I'm going to go Moonlight because the performances of every single actor in that movie are absolutely phenomenal. Ripley is gorgeous. I mean, so is Moonlight, but when they announced for real that Moonlight won the Academy Award for Best Picture, I about lost my shit because that movie, I watched that movie 3 times in the theater. And I don't do that unless it's a Star Wars movie or a Friday the 13th movie.
I'm picking Ripley because I think a lot of that has to do with the experience of seeing it for the first time, and it definitely was for me a transformative experience seeing that movie. Because it changed kind of the way that I looked at movies for the first time. '99 was like the year that made me as a somebody who watches movies, and that movie in particular, the way I watched it is kind of making me pick that over Moonlight. I think Moonlight is just as well, if not better, or even better accomplished. But I've got a history with Ripley.
Great.
We should really do a Patricia Highsmith adaptation show sometime because there's some really good movies out there. Strangers on a Train, one of my favorites.
I'll go The Talented Mr. Ripley.
Why are you so homophobic, Bob?
Aren't they? Aren't both movies? I thought I was more racist than I am.
Okay, why are you a racist, homophobic bigot? I quit!
Boogie Nights, Star Trek, 2009.
Boogie Nights.
Artie Lang's Beer League, Saving Mr. Banks.
I've never seen Beer League, and I wouldn't see Beer League if you paid me.
Oh, it's fantastic. True Grit, 2010, Saving Mr. Banks.
True Grit.
Creep Show, Pocahontas.
Creep Show.
Yeah.
That movie is...
Creep Show is slightly less of a hate crime.
Oh, my God.
The Major and the Minor, Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Never seen The Major and the Minor.
I love Buffy the TV show, but the movie is terrible. I'll pick
Changing Lanes or Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah, Changing Lanes.
I hate Kirsty Swanson too.
Yeah. Fern Gully, The Last Rainforest, Creed.
Creed.
Oh, we're gonna have to watch Fern Gully in a couple weeks for Avatar, right? The same movie. Only Fern Gully is a little less animated, isn't it?
So, yeah, a little less cloying too.
Empire Records, Practical Magic.
Empire Records.
I have never seen Empire Records.
It's my wife's favorite movie. I'll go with that as well. I Love You Man, Platoon.
I Love You Man.
Yeah. I Love You Man.
I'll go Platoon. I feel like I'm always defending that movie. I don't know why. Room, Wet Hot American Summer.
Room.
Yes, but Wet Hot American Summer is just
it's very fun.
Hilarious. Yeah. Room is the better movie though.
Bob, you Jeff, you won't get this. You're not a wrestling fan, but Bob, there's a large contingent now that are comparing Paul Rudd's character in Wet Hot American Summer to Orange Cassidy in AEW, and it's just kind of the perfect. It's so perfect.
Bicycle Thieves, Benny and June.
Bicycle Thieves.
I've never seen it.
I've never seen it either, so you win. Lolita, Patton.
Lolita is a blind spot. I've never actually seen it.
We got to watch.
Neither have I.
Use that one. So yeah, we'll save that one for a classic.
Oblivion, The Wedding Planner.
Oblivion. Good God.
Have I seen Oblivion?
I don't even know.
Tom Cruise.
Oh no, I definitely have not seen it. I tend to boycott most of his movies. I'll take your word for it.
Okay, no. Good. Because I don't want to say that out loud. All right, The Happening, Terminator
talk about
2,
a Sophie's
Judgment
Choice.
Day.
Terminator 2, Judgment Day.
Yes. Ma'am.
Shaun of the Dead's 1992's, I guess it didn't win Best Picture, Ascent of a Woman, Pacino's only Oscar.
I mean, I don't care about either. Shaun of the Dead, just because I think Son of a Woman is insufferable.
I'm going to pick Shaun of the Dead because it was an original idea that I don't need to ever watch again.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Al Pacino has been super annoying ever since that movie. He's just been doing that.
Great downhill.
The Natural, 1408.
That's hard because I just found out recently, Jeff, that I like 1408. I went back and read my review of 1408, and it turns out I really liked it.
I liked 1408. That's my choice.
I hate The Natural. I think it's a piece of shit.
Yeah, I don't care at all about The Natural.
You guys already picked 1408. So there you go.
1408 is my bank PIN code.
Good to know.
Wet Hot American Summer, School of Rock.
This choice would give Amy an aneurysm. I'm going to say School of Rock.
Mary Poppins, The Big Sick.
The Big Sick.
I'm going to say Mary Poppins because this is the movie that made me really want to punch Zoe Kazan.
Really?
This was like her being Zoe Deschanel to me. And I know, like the character is supposed to be, but it was that, that manic pixie dream girl thing that just drives me up the fucking wall. And that's the impression I got of her just for the first few minutes that it stuck. That's why I said when we watched She Said, I was like, oh, I actually did not hate her.
I think that was my favorite movie that year.
I do.
Which is why I'm glad you joined the podcast, because Sean and I was starting to just morph into everything Sean liked. Joe Bell, The Rock.
The Rock. Joe Bell is terrible. It's a terrible film.
It's just so saccharine and syrupy and
total bullshit. I mean,
yeah.
Jingle All the Way, Logan's Run.
Logan's Run.
Yeah, I recently finally watched Jingle All the Way. I got it for $1 with the. I was unopened and it had the voodoo code inside of it, and I'm like, oh, I'll just I sold it for $5 on eBay, and I kept the code, and I was like, oh, this is really horrible. And Jake Lloyd was the best part of the movie. If that tells you anything. No, I like Jake Lloyd. He's yeah. Anyway, In and Out or The Town?
The Town.
Yeah, In and Out, for being a movie about a gay guy, was pretty. Or having gay themes is pretty homophobic to me.
Doesn't age well. Yeah.
No.
The Black Cauldron, Accepted.
Accepted.
Yeah.
Hard Candy, The Farm of Tomorrow.
That's an animated short from the 50s.
Hard Candy, Murder on the Orient Express.
Hard Candy. I don't hate Murder on the Orient Express, but Hard Candy's a better movie.
True Grit, Exit Through the Gift Shop.
That's tough.
Exit Through the Gift Shop. That movie was.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen it.
As an artist, as somebody who does art, and enjoys Banksy, and saw the Mr. Brainwash show when I lived in New York, and it was it's like, oh, this guy is just he's obviously Banksy.
For a documentary to have that kind of narrative thrust is so. I mean, it almost plays like a mystery at times, which is kind of fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I'll go with that. I can go with that.
I've never seen it. Wander Darkly, The Burbs.
Wander Darkly.
Never seen it.
Have I seen it? I don't remember.
Sienna Miller, Diego Luna. It's a good movie.
Oh, I know we remember talking about it now. Toy Story, The Bank Job.
Toy Story.
Toy Story.
See, all the funny stuff happened at the beginning of this, and now I'm just trying to find a way out. Die Hard, The Crime of a Century.
Never seen The Crime of the Century, though I want to.
Die Hard, Practical Magic. It popped up 4 times now.
No. It's Die Hard, obviously, but...
Transformers, Dark of the Moon, Rambo 3, last one.
Rambo 3.
Seriously?
Fishing with Gandhi.
Right? I hate Transformers enough to vote for Rambo 3. That's what
I hate both of them enough to vote for Silent Night, Deadly Night.
I would take Silent Night, Deadly Night over both of those movies.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We have finally converted Sean.
Yes.
Now we don't have to
thousands of movies. I would rank it ahead of Rambo 3 and Transformers Dark of the Moon.
So would we, though. We would do the same. So we all agree.
Yes.
So I think you have to put Silent Night, Deadly Night up against all these movies.
I mean, if you put it in there, you could actually rank the movie specifically. If
I know.
We used to do that.
Do that.
And that's how I learned how to do that, was listening to the show.
And then we just stopped doing it because I don't even remember how to do it anymore. All right. That's the show. See everybody later.
Bye.
Goodbye.